Blah 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 Jews. Blah 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 where? Azerbaijan! The Mountain Jews are an ancient Jewish people from the Caucasus. They predate the modern nations of the region, but can be found in Chechnya, Ingushetia, Dagestan, a bunch of other Russian republics, Georgia, and Armenia, but mainly in Azerbaijan. They are culturally and linguistically distinct from the Georgian Jews, another relatively large, thousands of years old Jewish community from the Caucasus, who I will also talk about eventually. Side note, I found this Azerbaijani state-sponsored series of videos where this LA woman named Nancy Perlman travels through Azerbaijan and marvels at everything. She always looks a little wigged out, and everyone she interviews looks really uncomfortable, which makes sense because she's talking at them in English, but she's too powerful to feel awkward back. I love it. I love her. We stan a queen. Anyway, the Mountain Jews are descendants of Persian Jews, who have been in Iran since the 8th century BCE, and arrived in earnest in the Caucasus in the 5th century BCE, with evidence of their presence in Azerbaijan since at least 457 BCE. According to oral tradition, they are members of the Lost Tribes, with 19,000 Jews who left Jerusalem after the Babylonian destruction of the Temple, went through Syria, Babylon, Iran, settling in Media. According to some historians, the strong military traditions of the Mountain Jews suggest that they may be the descendants of warrior Jews who were settled in the Caucasus border regions by the Parthian and Sasanian empires. While there is little written evidence from this time, as can be more or less expected, there are some things that we can know for sure. The first is that we know they are an offshoot of Persian Jewry because of their understanding and incorporation of the Zuhurani language, which was a lingua franca of Persian Jews, while the languages spoken around them in Azerbaijan, Dagestan, etc., are Turkic. Juhuri, which is another name for them in their language, is of Iranian origin. More cool language stuff later. The second thing that we can know for sure is that Cyrus the Great was great. After he bodied the Babylonians, he allowed the Jews to return to Zion, but we loved him so much that a lot of us just didn't go, and rather spread out amongst his many domains. One of his domains was Israel, but you get what I'm saying. While there is little written evidence, there is some. One 6th and 5th century BCE treasure trove of Jewish information is the Murashu tablets, a collection of 879 clay tablets about/by the Murashu family, who were descendants of the Babylonian exile and captivity who stayed put in Nippur after our boy Cyrus freed them. In these documents, they describe Jews being present in what is now modern South Azerbaijan. Later, in the 200s CE, post-Achaemenid Sasanian king Shapur I allowed the Jews to establish communal institutions and appointed a Rosh HaGolah, or a head of the diaspora, to lead them. Lit. There is also archaeological evidence in the form of a 6th century synagogue that was dug up in Azerbaijan. There are also texts, architectural analyses, talismans, etc. that show their presence in the region. Links for everything in the description. Okay, so the history of medieval Azerbaijan is crazy and pretty well documented, and I recommend you look it up. I'm gonna power through it though. Sorry. It's too cool to skip entirely, but there's also so much Soviet and modern stuff to cover. Okay, Islam takes the stage in the 7th century. Azerbaijan becomes a part of the Umar Caliphate in 639. The Albanian Kingdom, Caucasian Albania, an ancient kingdom not to be confused with Balkan Albania, a modern state. It is an interesting curiosity. Look into it. Rebelled against the Caliphate, resulting in a crackdown in the 640s and 50s. It was not fun, but Jews survived, and 100 years later, during the Abbasid Caliphate, things were good for Jews. They just had to pay jizya. The Caliphate collapsed and was replaced by the Shirvanshah Emirate at the beginning of the 9th century, whose capital, Shibran, had a significant and integrated Jewish community. Now, the thing about the Shirvanshahs is they loved being vassals. Bang. 1066, Shirvanshah's a vassal of the Seljuk Turks. Bang. 1194, Seljuk collapsed. Shirvanshah's a vassal of Georgia, but maybe also Khwarezmians. Bang. It doesn't matter. Here come the Mongols. Mongolian Ilkhanids take over in the 1200s, make Azerbaijan the center of their empire. How are the Jews? Let's check on the Jews. Jews are great. The Buddhist Ilkhanids allowed Jews into the upper echelons of civil service and bureaucracy. I'm speeding up here, but actually a Jewish potentate named Labid en Abi Irabi actually administered the whole province of Azerbaijan during this time. But now it's 1295. How are the Jews? Islamic anti-Jewish faction rises to power in the empire. Oh no! Massacres and forced conversions for all. One of these conversos, Rashid al-Din Tabib, actually retained high office for a time, first vizier under Khan Mahmud Garzan, but he was eventually killed on the orders of a Sharia court in 1318. Carrying on, the Ilkhanid Empire collapses in 1335. Chaos. Here comes Timur with another horde of Mongols. Bang. 1383, Timurid vassal. Bang, 1501, Safavid vassal, until the Safavids finally put them out of their misery and brought them under direct rule in 1538. The region changed hands again in the Ottoman-Safavid War of 1578 to 1590, before changing back again in the 1600s. And now we can talk about the Jews again, until we talk about the Russians. How are the Jews? Not great, to be honest. The population has really declined because of all the wars, massacres, and forced conversions. This led the mountain Jews to head out to more remote areas where they could chill for a minute. They found the mountain valleys of Dagestan. One valley in particular and its settlement, Abba Sava, was called the Jewish Valley by their Muslim neighbors, eventually developing into a semi-autonomous Jewish state. Very cool. The Jewish Valley settlement lasted from 1630 until the end of the 18th century, where they were brutally systematically slaughtered by Russian-backed Sheikh Ali Khan. Yikes. But they escaped to Durban, a city in modern-day Dagestan that was conquered by the newly established Kuba Khanate in 1765. The Khans of the Khanate were surprisingly good to Jews. While Nadir Shah was massacring and converting the Jews of Persia and the Russians were just massacring, this lovely little Khanate welcomed Jews, especially under historically good dude Fatali Khan, who ruled from 1758 until 1789. I even saw that he let Jews own property, which is unprecedented. But it's so unprecedented that I need to find it better sourced than an uncited claim on the internet before I can jack it.
That's why the main road in this town is named after Fatali Khan. And we also plan to erect a monument for him.
After his death, rest up Khan, the power of the Khanate declined and the major powers, Iran, the Ottomans, and the Russians, got back to jockeying for supremacy. And the madness began again. Russo-Persian War of 1804 to 1813, Russia wins, takes control of the Khanate, Georgia, and Dagestan. Russo-Persian War of 1826 to 1828, Russia takes control of the Yerevan Khanate and more up to the Aras River, all of modern-day Azerbaijan.
Somebody bring him back, he's moving too fast.
How are the Jews? The Jews are bad. Russian Christianization projects makes Islam the religion of resistance. Jews are caught in between, getting massacred by both sides. However, there is some progress in cities like Baku, as some Jews managed to gain some business success there, opening a religious house in 1832 that became a synagogue in 1896. Also, Russian control means we have interactions between Russian and Azeri Jews. However, Russian control means European textile dyes flood the market, putting many mountain Jewish agricultural laborers out of business. They've got to urbanize. From the end of the 1700s to the early 1900s, the Russian Empire's Jewish population faced constant pogroms, widespread massacres, and ethnic cleansing, during which thousands and thousands were murdered. In her book, Legacy of Blood, Jews, Pogroms, and Ritual Murder in the Lands of the Soviets, Professor Bemperad's study of only the pogroms of the late 19th and early 20th century put the death toll at 150,000 Jews murdered and 1/3 of all Jewish women raped. During the Russian Civil War, an estimated 60,000 more were killed in Eastern Europe. These numbers are not even including the thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands, murdered in pre-1881 in territories Russia conquered from the Ottoman Empire and Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth from 1772 on. Big yikes. They were forbidden to move around in Eastern Europe, but they could go to Siberia or the Caucasus, and many ended up in Azerbaijan, where things were better.
Somebody bring him crack, he's moving even faster.
1917 Russian collapse. Transcaucasian Democratic Federative Republic is formed in 1918, combining Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. The republic collapsed a few months later because they hate each other. Azerbaijan Democratic Republic breaks away, fairly based. First parliamentary republic in the Muslim world, gives legal sovereignty to women, elects a Jew to parliament. Yeah. 23 months later, the Red Army comes in and it is now a Soviet republic, Azerbaijan SSR, in 1920. The Jewish population had swelled to 137,000 at this time, mostly refugees fleeing pogroms. Soviets put the peasant farmers, which mountain Jews primarily were, in collective farms, which was bad for some, but it ended their isolation, leading to interactions with other peoples, which was good. Sovietization meant Hebrew, Yiddish, and religion were banned, and synagogues and organizations were closed.
We couldn't go to the synagogues until the 60s and 70s when they began to reopen.
But mountain Jews spoke Judeo-Tat, which we will get into, was also banned, but not as severely, and were mostly out on the periphery, so they were okay. During World War II, the Holocaust found its way to the Caucasus when the Wehrmacht occupied a large part of the northern Caucasus in 1942.
This is a list of the mountain Jews who fought in World War II and died in battle. In this district, every family has a relative who died in the war.
They did round up and murder between 1,000 and 1,500 mountain Jews in the course of their occupation. However, I did find a heartwarming story where their neighbors convinced the Nazis that they weren't Jews, but Tats, a similar-looking Iranian people who live in the area, saving thousands of Jewish lives in the process. The citation for this story leads to an article in Russian, which I can't read, so take it with a grain of salt, unless you can read Cyrillic, in which case the link is in the description. Anyway, after the war, life went on. In 1951, Stalin didn't like the Kurdish Jews for some reason, who had a large community in Baku. Soviets deport all Kurdish Jews from the Caucasus. In 1962, an Ashkenazi Azerbaijani Jew from Baku won a Nobel Prize for his contributions to nuclear physics, showing that education was definitely open to Jews in the area, which was a big deal because at the time Jewish discrimination in higher education was typical for Soviet republics and the United States, but not Azerbaijan. He was theoretical physicist Lev Landau, who I thought was the Landauer limit guy, but he's not. But that guy is also Jewish. During the 70s and 80s, Baku became one of the many centers of Soviet chess excellence, producing the most well-known, by me at least, Azerbaijani Jew, Garry Kasparov. Anyway, the USSR collapsed and Azeri independence occurred on October 18, 1991. Because of the clever Soviet border drawing, Stalin was a master at this. Look at Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan borders. Independence led immediately to the First Nagorno-Karabakh War as Armenia seized control of the majority Armenian region of Azerbaijan. First Nagorno-Karabakh War, 1988, about to 1994, there was a huge amount of violence and ethnic cleansing that I won't get into, but it was bad. Watch Caspian Report. Good channel. Notable Jews. Albert Agarinov, a tank commander who was posthumously awarded the title of National Hero of Azerbaijan after being killed in 1992. Most of the Russians and Armenians left Azerbaijan at this time, but not the mountain Jews. While mountain Jews in Chechnya and Dagestan had a bad time after dissolution, mountain Jews in Azerbaijan were relatively okay, despite the wars and stuff. Power through. In 1993, the democratically elected government was overthrown by the military, and former Soviet leader Haydar Aliyev came to power. He died in 2003, and his son Ilham Aliyev took power. He is still in power. 2020 saw the outbreak of Nagorno-Karabakh too, Electric Boogaloo, and this time Azerbaijan made significant territorial gains, but the situation is still very tense. Which brings us to today. Wow! So much history! Nowadays, there are an estimated 30,000 Jews in Azerbaijan, according to a 2016 estimate by Jewish Virtual Library, but there could be as many as 50,000. There are many groups other than the Mountain Jews. There are the aforementioned Ashkenazi Russian Jews who came down in Soviet times, Georgian Jews, Gerim, the Subotniks, the Krimcheks, Kurdish Jews, the Bukhari Jews, Central Asian Jews from Uzbekistan, Jewsbeks, if you will. The majority of Jews live in Baku, about 16,000, while the majority of Mountain Jews live in, forgive me, Germizi Gasaba, about 4,000, the world's only Jewish town outside of Israel and the U.S. It has been described as the world's last surviving shtetl.
Currently, we have approximately 3,500 Jews living in the Red Town. In 1917, before the Russian Revolution, there were approximately 15,000 Jews living here.
Cool. Religiously, they are distinct. They are not Sephardi, Ashkenazi, or Mizrahi, but they are Mizrahi-ish, which makes sense considering they are an offshoot of Persian Jewry. However, their traditions are infused with Kabbalah and other mysticism. They have a two-tiered rabbinate, distinguishing between a rabbi and a dayan. The rabbi title is given to the cantor, preacher, teacher person, but the dayan was the true chief rabbi of a town, representing the highest religious authority in the town. They are democratically elected, which is dope. The Mountain Jews speak a unique Jewish language, or just a distinct dialect of the Persian Tat language called Jehuri or Judeo-Tat. You know the drill by now. It's a Judeo-Creole language. It's awesome. It's critically endangered. It has certain sounds from Hebrew with no neighboring equivalents, which is lit. It was written in Hebrew, but then it was written in Latin between 1929 and 1939, but then after Sovietization, it is now written in Cyrillic, but Hebrew is coming back. I'm not sure. I found this video on the internet, but caution, I have no idea what she's saying.
אמא, זה לא מה שאת חושבת, באמת שלא. خوندنم ها؟ خوندنم. من 2 ساعت اونجا گدم خوریونه به چی رشته قپا قجاقارا. تو از بعد گفتی که ماما مدام خوندنم. هری؟
It was just dope to me to see someone who's not super old. But here's someone who is super old also.
جوری فارسی سی گروپ انسون های اقدانو گفته هیبرو داری. ای رازنسه اند گورسکی جوران اند تاتها اونی که اقدان زونن گورسکی جورا انبارا گفته ان هیبرو داری.
Is there anti-Semitism?
There is no anti-Semitism in Azerbaijan.
Very rare. Little anti-Semitism in Azerbaijan.
This synagogue, and the Jews who come here, are a testament to the fact that we live freely. We read our Torah, we practice our religion, and we enjoy all the constitutional rights that were given to us by the Constitution of the Republic of Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan has actually been great to Jews. But the Mountain Jews have gotten their fair share in pretty much everywhere else. But anyway, in Azerbaijan, the U.S. Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor put out a report in 2005 saying cases of prejudice and discrimination against Jews in the country were very limited, and in the few instances of anti-Semitic activity, the government has been quick to respond. The government does not condone or tolerate persecution of Jews by any party. I love you for that, Azerbaijan. In 2005, they even elected Yevda Abramov as an MP in National Assembly.
I still represent the Jewish population, but I represent them not as a Jew, but as a citizen of Azerbaijan.
Unfortunately, he just recently died in office, recently in 2019, but still, incredible. So, is it foo? No. Good genetic evidence from multiple studies, good cultural and language ties consistent with the Babylonian diaspora, and a 2002 study by geneticist Dror Rosengarten found that the genetics of mountain Jews, quote, were shared with other Jewish communities and were consistent with a Mediterranean origin. Who are some famous people? Well, there's a lot of singers, dancers, poets, musicians, artists, doctors, a football player, mathematicians. I thought I would get to talk a lot about Garry Kasparov, but unfortunately found out that he is a Russian Jew from Baku, or I should say an Ashkenazi Jew who was born and raised in Baku, and not a mountain Jew, and so is Landau, the physicist, but still, Azerbaijani Jews. But here is a Russian pop star. Sarah Livonia Monachimova Shore, aka Jasmine, is a mountain Jew from Dagestan. I would play her music here, but I've been copyrighted for less, so I won't. But duh has all the makings of an early 2000s bang-a-langer for sure. Peep. And yeah, to close it, I just want to tell you about one of the most Jewy things I found. There's an article interviewing a weirdo rabbi as he walks through a Jewish cemetery and complains about stuff. He points at a statue on a grave. Not good, he says. He walks on. I knew all these people personally. This guy, for instance, went fishing one day, and when he cast his line, it ended up hitting some wires, he got electrocuted and died. Not funny in itself, but, imagine the context he's walking with this journalist. Then, when the Soviets came, they sent all the rabbis to the gulags. But there was always at least one synagogue being used here. Even though it was shuttered for a time, people continued to pray here in secret. Over time, however, the people here lost their knowledge of Torah and Jewish law. Complaining about people not being Jewy enough. When the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of Jews here seized the opportunity and became really rich. A lot of them made millions at a relatively young age. They went from nothing to being exceptionally rich, and a lot of them began using drugs. When you suddenly get a lot of money and don't know what to do with it, you lose your head. A lot of them died from drugs, many of them between 30 and 40 years old. What? Then he complains that no one is learning Azeri anymore, pointing to tombstones with no Azeri, just Russian. He complains about children who don't follow the mitzvot, the next generation is lost. He complains about people moving to Russia, to Israel, away. But then at the end he says, as long as there are Jews here, I plan to stay here. Classic. Baruch Hashem.
What is my wish for the Jews of America? I wish for American Jews that they experience the same level of tolerance that we, the mountain Jews, enjoy here in Azerbaijan.